Kakadosh Boker Or, Daf Yomi Masechet Shevuot Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. Okay, we're starting like this. If you remember, we just mentioned that when do we say that there's no chiyuv chatat when it's going to be karet? Only by a korban kavua. However, though, if you're going to tell me that it's a korban or lev yored, he says, why don't you bring it? Meaning that a person that comes and eats truma, if he's tameh, he should bring, right? Even though there's no chiyuv karet, because we already said it's only midavid shamayim maximum. He says he should still bring korban or lev yored. Neither the hava shmiat kol v'beitu isfatayim, that you would also bring a korban or lev yored, even though there's no karet, right? Remember, if there's no karet, so therefore you're not going to bring the korban chatat. But maybe you could bring a korban olev yored. Korban olev yored is korban chatat, but it goes up and it goes down. Okay. So he says like this: Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "Ba." What is ba? Ba lemiyute truma. It comes to truma, which means that if a person comes and eats truma, right? If a person comes and eats truma, right? What happens? So what's going to happen is it's going to be ma'et truma, that he's not going to be chayav korban or lev yored. Yeah? If you guys don't pay attention, you're not going to understand. So he says like this, Eima ba lemiyute migdash. He says, why don't I just say the word ba is lemiyute migdash, right? The lo sagile be korban or lev yored. That it's not going to be enough korban or lev yored. Ademaiti korban kavua, until it's going to bring a korban kavua. So to minute kacha, yeah? One more time. We're talking about, we're on the top of Zayin Amud Aleph. Yeah? One more time. We're talking about the concept of korban chatat and korban ole yored. Korban chatat is called korban chatat kavua. It's kavua. Why is it kavua? There's no games. No up and no down. It's only kavua. It's fixed. There's nothing what to talk about. There's another korban, which is also korban chatat, which is called korban chatat ole v'yored, meaning it goes up and down according to the stature in society. If you're wealthy, you do the regular korban, basically. It's a regular korban chatat, right? If right now, for example, a person is not as wealthy, so bring the birds, he's still not as wealthy, meaning that, so then, right, he's going to bring the fine flour, right, the korban mincha. So therefore, right, what happens is that he says here, maybe the word ba doesn't come to exclude teruma. That if you ate teruma when you were tameh, right, or you ate teruma tmeah, that it's going to become a problem that you have to. He says maybe it's coming to exclude kodesh. He says, what does that mean? The miyute mikdash ve kodesh. The what? By kodesh and mikdash, you're not going to be yotzei rechovah ad shata mevi korban chatat kevua. It doesn't help a korban olev yored. So says the Gemara, Kari Rava led Rabbi. So Rava called in the words of Rabbi, Dole Mai Midbarot Mukim. Right? That basically with his wisdom, he's trying to bring very strong fuentes, very strong sources. Right? What does that mean? The Tanya was learned in a Braita, Rabbi Omer. Rabbi says, Ekra ani chaya. Right? Ekra ani chaya, what does that mean? It was already enough to speak about that if somebody's going to come and they're going to touch a nevelava chaya, right, that it's going to become tameh. But it says in the pasuk, or nefesh ki tiga b'chol davar tameh, or v'nivla chaya tmea, or v'nivla be'ema tmea. So he says it was already enough chaya. Be'ema lama nemra. Why did it say the be'ema? So he says, nemar kam be'ema tmea, v'nemar lalam be'ema tmea. It says be'ema tmea by korban olev yored. And it says be'ema, right, also by the basar shlamim b'mezid, that if you were tameh, that you ate the shlamim b'mezid. Ma lehalan tumat kodesh, afkan tumat kodesh. So therefore he says, it's all talking about the pasuk of tumat kodesh. So he says, ashkechan tumat kodesh, tumat migdash minalam. Remember, there's always two things. There's tumat kodesh and tumat migdash. Tumat kodesh means that you're coming and you're eating kodshim, or banot, right? When you were tameh. Tumat migdash is you're tameh, and you went into the Bet HaMikdash. So there's a difference between tumat kodshim and tumat, right, migdash. It's called tumat kodesh and tumat migdash. Migdash is going into the Bet HaMikdash when you're tameh. Tumat kodesh, you're eating kodshim when you're tameh. You're eating korbanot when you're tameh. So he says, I found tumat kodesh. Where do you see tumat migdash? So he says, Amarkar, the pasuk says, Lechol kodesh lo tiga, right, vela migdash lo tavo. Itkish migdash le kodesh. There, I put a kesh between, right? Yes, where it's written. Where it's written, that's where you make a hekesh, right? So therefore it says you're making a hekesh between Kodesh and Mikdash. That just like it's written, Bechol Kodesh lo tiga, ve'ela Mikdash lo tavo. So there's a hekesh. We apply the same halachot to each other. So Yihachiv, so Truma nami. Just 1 second. Why don't I also apply it also then to Truma? Tamar more Bechol Kodesh lo tiga is including Truma. So if right now Bechol Kodesh lo tiga is including Truma, yeah. So therefore the question is, what's going on then? Yeah. Yeah. You guys with me? So, כל הכבוד. אם מחר הוא לא מדקלם את הדף הזה בערפה ונותן... He says, even though I just wanted to include Teruma because it says Bechol Kodesh Lo Tiga, and Bechol Kodesh Lo Tiga comes to include Teruma. The Torah excludes it because it says Ba. So says the Gemara, Ema Ba Lemiut Mikdash. Maybe the Ba comes Lemiut the Mikdash. So he says, Mistabra, I'm going to say it's more Mistaber, Mikdash Lo Mematinan. That we're not going to be Ma'et the Mikdash, Sheken Bekaret Kemotah. Because when a person comes and he's going to be Tameh, and he's going to come to the Bet HaMikdash, Mizid, he gets karet in such a case. So says the Gemara, Adra, but the opposite. Teruma lo mematinan, sheken achila kemotah. Yeah, what does that mean? I cannot come and be ma'et from the ba, right, truma, because it's an isur which is like achilat kodesh v'tuma, and it's a sur achila. So therefore the opposite. I'm going to be marbeh the kesh to achilat kodesh, to achilat truma, to do the korban olev yored, and I'm going to be mema'et with the ba to mat mikdash, which is different. Meaning, there are two things which are isur achila. So I would compare much more the isur achila with another isur achila, with the isur of achila to do with the coming into the Bet HaMikdash, right? When you're going to be tameh. So you have isur achila of truma. When you're going to eat truma tameh, or you're tameh and you're eating truma, right? And then you have the isur achila of eating of the kodesh with tumah. So therefore, I would prefer to compare the eating with eating, right, than the eating, right, with the coming into the Bet HaMikdash. Because there, it's not the same thing. One is eating, one is the coming into the Bet HaMikdash. So he comes and he says like this, Ela Amar Rava, but rather Rava says, the obligation of Korban Olev Yored Betumah Mikdash is learned like this. Shalosh Kritut Bishlamim Lama. Why does it say 3 times the isur or the I'm going to say the punishment of karet, right? It says it 3 times on eating basar shlamim. 3 times. 1 time it says kol isha shirikam kodashim betumato alav v'nichreta. Number 1. Another 2 times parashat tzav v'anefesh shetochal basar mizavak shlamim betumato alav v'nichreta and v'nefesh kitika bechol tameh v'echad mizavak shlamim v'nichreta. Why do you have 3 times karet by shlamim? Yeah, shlamim is a peace offering. It's eating kodshim. So why is it 3 times mentioned, right? Karet. So he says, achat, right? One of them we're talking about, liklal, what? No. He says that one of them is, liklal ha-kodashim shenechlu betum'ah. But it says, el ha-kodashim. Ve'achat, one of them, is leprat. Right? Ve'achat, letumah ktuva bestam. Right, and one of them is going to be Tumah, which is written Stam in the Korban Olev Yored. But I don't know what it is. Heveomer Tumat Kodesh. So then I would say Tumat Kodesh. And if you don't need it for Tumat Kodesh, then Afkaleb, he says you learn it from Rabbi because of the Gzera Shava. Then Tumat Mikdash. So then I learn it from Tumat Mikdash, which means like this. One of them I'm learning for the klal, the general rule. One of them I'm learning from the prat. Now, from both of them together, we're learning that you're not going to be chayav karet only in kodshim, which is like a shlamim, right? Because klal ufrat, when they're far away from each other, usually klal ufrat, they're usually right beside each other. Here, you had one of them in parashat Emor, and then you had 2 of them in parashat Tzav. They're far away from each other, right? Tzav is, you have Vayikra, Tzav, and then you have Shemini, right? And then after Shemini, you have Tazriya Tara, and then Achremo Kedoshim, and then Emor. So this Shabbat is Achremo Kedoshim. Next Shabbat is Emor. Yeah, so from Tzav to Emor, right? You've got, you understand? One is mamash towards the beginning, right? And one is towards the end of Vayikra. They're both in Vayikra, because it talks about Korbanot, but one is towards the beginning, the second parasha, and the other one is, so when you have a klal ufrat, a generalization and specification, and they're far away from each other, huh? No, one of them is a klal. What is a klal? The klal was when it says no, we're not doing that. We're doing the klal and prat. One of them, the klal is in parashat Emor, and the prat is in parashat Tzav. Now the third one, which was extra, because אני לא צריך את זה. יש לך klal ופרט כבר. אני לא צריך את השלישי. So why do I have the shlishi? 1 second. One more time. I've got 3 psukim. Let me read to you the psukim. The first one is parashat Emor. Kol ish asher yikrav mikol zarachem al kodashim vetumato alav venichrata nefesh hahi. This is a klal. Why is it a klal? Did I mention any korban? No. Did I mention kol ish is on the person, but also asher yikrav mikol el kodashim, any kodashim. I didn't tell you what. I didn't tell you generalization. Zenikra klal. The next one in parashat Tzav is v'anefesh shetocha b'sar mizevach hashelamim. So I went in, I zoomed in. I didn't tell you any korban. I told you el hashlamim mizevach hashelamim, and then I told you the karet. So now that is the one, right, which is going to be mentioned, the rat, right? Why? Because I brought down that if you eat, what was the first one? You get karet. What is the second one? A person that comes and eats the shlamim when he's tameh, he gets karet. What's the third one? A person that touches anything which is tameh and he eats the shlamim gets karet. That's a repeat. So it's a deja vu. Again, why do I have a repeat? So therefore he comes and he says like this. The first one, which one? No, the one in Emor is the klal. 1 second. The one in Emor is the klal. The one in Tzav is the prat, because it's brought down in the shlamim. So now I have the third one. What is the third one coming to teach you? Right? So he says like this. It's coming to teach you Tum'ah, which is written in the Torah Stam, which we're talking about by Korban Olev Yored. And I don't know which Tum'ah. Am I talking about, which Tum'ah are we talking about? Eve Omer Tum'ah Mikdash. I would tell you it's Tum'ah Mikdash. Meaning you came into the Bet HaMikdash when you're Tameh, and you have to bring a Korban Olev Yored. Now, if you don't need it for the Tum'ah HaMikdash, because you already learned it from Agzera Shava, right, of Rabbi. So therefore he says, so then give it to the Tumat, right, Mikdash, right, Teneu Inyan, Letumat Mikdash, which means that Tumat Mikdash, that even on that you're going to be Chayav at Korban Olev Yored. So this is the concept of Imenu Inyan Lezeh, Teneu Inyan Lezeh, which means if I don't need it for one Dirasha, I could use it for another Dirasha. So even though the Pasuk is talking about Tumat Kodesh, I'm going to bring it to Tumat Mikdash. Okay. Now, according to we didn't need it because at the end of the day, right? You already learned it from Gezerah Shavah. Okay, fine. Vehaimi baele, right? Lechdri biavu. Says 1 second, but I thought that we needed it for the biavu. Why? Ta'amar biavu says a biavu. Shelosh krito b'shlimim lama. Why do I need 3 kritut by shlamim? Achal leklal, ve'achal lifrat, ve'achat ledvarim she'enam ne'echalim. Now I just gave you a completely different kivun. What does that mean? Remember, according to everybody, we have a klal ufrat. Now, but we have another prat. What do I do with the third prat? So the first explanation is that if I didn't need it for the prat again, so teneu inyan lemashu acher. Anachnu medabrim al mashu acher. Ma anachnu medabrim? Tumat mikdash. You came into the Bet HaMikdash when you're tameh. Okay, very good. Rabbi Avu comes and he says, you know why we have 3 karets? 1, the klal. 2, the prat. Until here, we're all clear. Because that we learned it already 6 times. What is the third one? Something which is not eaten. Which means even coaching which are not ra'ui la'achila. For example, atzeh ma'aracha, levonav, right, or the ketoret, that really be'emet, you're chayav karet, even if you ate them betumah. Meaning that, imagine I'm going to come and I'm going to tell you, somebody ate the ketoret. You're not supposed to eat the ketoret. Somebody ate the levona. You're not supposed to eat the levona. It wasn't something that you're supposed to eat, right? The wood of the maracha. Imagine a person took wood, he he pulverized it, but then he came and ate the wood. It's wood of atzeh maracha. Now he was tameh, so in such a case he's going to be chayav karet. Meaning the third prat right? Because it was a klal prat, and now the third one, which is the prat, that is not coming to include anything else other than dvarim shelo ne'echalim, things which are not usually eaten. Okay, that is the shita of Rabbi Yavu. Or Rabbi Shimon da Amar. Now, according to Shita Rabbi Shimon, he says, "Devarim she'enam ne'echalim and chayvim alem karet mishum tuma." Says 1 second, but according to Shita Rabbi Shimon, doesn't exist such a thing. Because according to Shita Rabbi Shimon, it does not exist, right? That a person is going to be chayav karet on something which you cannot eat. You do not regularly eat. Okay? There's no karet for that, right? That means, for example, imagine right now somebody eats the atzem aracha betum'ah. There's no karet. So he says there's no karet. So la'atuya, what is it coming to include then? Chatata pnimit. Chatata pnimit, remember, is the inner chatat. The inner chatat, they don't put the blood on the mizbeach hachitzon. They put the chatat on the mizbeach hapnimi. So this, for example, I'll give you the example, par v'sayid of the Yom Kippurim, right? Or par of Akon HaMashiach, or par helem devar shel tzibur. So therefore, he comes and he says like this. So those are certain chataot, right, which you are going to do inside of the Hechal. So he says the salka daita chamina, but I would have thought to say hoil v'amar b'Shimon, since Rabbi Shimon says kol sheno karev al mizbeach hachitzon kishlamim en chayvim ala mishum pigur. Anything which is not going to be brought on the mizbeach hachitzon like a shlamim, there's no pigur, because pigur is mefurash only on parashat shlamim. So therefore, everyone knows what pigur is. Yes, to do after the proper time of the korban. Meaning he went and he said, I'm going to do the shchita, and I'm going to bring this korban, and I'm going to eat it whenever it is. Or I'm going to bring the blood, I'm going to sprinkle the blood whenever it is. Much outside of the time frame when you're allowed to bring the korban. No, that's notar. Notar. Yeah. Pigul is when a person comes and he's going to do a korban and he's doing it at the wrong time. Meaning when he's doing the shchita, he's thinking, I'm only going to bring it on the mizbeach. I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow instead of today. You have to do it today. I'm only going to do it tomorrow. Right? There's also an yan to do with eating it. If I'm going to think about only eating it later on. Which one? It's pasul. It's pasul. הוא חייב כרת כשהוא אוכל את זה. זה חיוב כרת כשהוא אוכל את הקורבן. Yeah. Because it's פסול. אבל הוא צריך להכניס את זה כל בית המקדש, לא? הוא מכניס את זה בית המקדש. לא יכול, אבל לא, זה מדברים על הכהן עושה את הפיגול, לא הבעל. הכהן. לא בשוגג, אבל כשהוא עושה את זה במזיד. So he comes and he says like this. So he has to pay for it usually. There's a whole question about that. You have to pay for it. Usually yeah. So he comes and he says like this. According to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, it's only going to be by korbanot, right, which are like a chatat, a pnimit. Why? He says, since it's just like the achilav tuma kedim pigul, so therefore, just like there's not going to be chiyuv chatat, mishum tuma, as nami also, so kamashmalan de mechayev comes to teach you that you're also going to be chayav. That is the karet hashlishit. That means to do a tum'ah, you're going to be chayav karet even on chatat pnimit. Meaning like this. Doctor, what was the second prat? In Sav, what was that? That was telling you the what? No, that's the third one. Very good. You eat the... No, the second Sav. The second prat. That's the second. Okay. אז לא, טוב, לא משנה. אולי אני לא הסברתי טוב, אבל עוד פעם. יש לך 3 פסוקים. The כלל is a general. No. When we're talking about right now, eating of zevach hashlamim, and you get karet. So since it's the prat, it has to be domeh to the shlamim, right? That's a prat. Remember, when you have a klal ufrat, but it's not just some klal ufrat, prat, but it's not only that. It's since it's far away. Lama yatsa mina prat, yatsa mina klal. Lo lelamed al atzmo yizeh, lelamed kol hakalal kulo, all the entire kalal. It's coming to teach you. So what's coming? As to be domeh to the shlamim. So I'm going to ask you a question. Pigul is written only by shlamim. We are going to come and compare it to other things, but he says like this: Kol she'eno karev al mizbeach hachitzon kishlamim and chayvim alav mishum pigul. Shlamim is always on the outside mizbeach. It's never on the inside mizbeach. Remember, there's two mizbeachs, right? There was one mizbeach hachitzon, right, which is also mizbeach nechoshet, right? There's many different names for it, right? Fine. The mizbeach hapnimi. Mizbeach hapnimi was inside the Hechal. Everyone knows the picture, the big building in the Beit HaMikdash. In that big building, right, you had the Hechal, right, and you had the Ulam. Inside of the Hechal, you had the menorah, you have the Shulchan, and you have the Mizbeach HaPnimi. That Mizbeach HaPnimi, the inner Mizbeach, is called Mizbeach HaZahav because it wasn't made out of copper like the outside one. It was made out of gold. You have Mizbeach HaPnimi, right? So you have Mizbeach HaKetoret, right? You have different names for it as well. So there's different names for each one. Now, Korban Shlamim is only brought on the outer Mizbeach, on the outside. So here he says like this, says Rabbi Shimon, any Korban which is only brought, which is not brought on the outer one, there's no Pigul. Why is there no Pigul? Because since the Pigul is only written on the Shlamim, so therefore if I have a Korban which is only on the inside, so that's not like the Shlamim. If it's not like the Shlamim, there's no Pigul. That means even though you thought that I'm going to do this, whatever it is, and you had the wrong mindset, and you thought of doing it in the wrong time, there's no Pigul. Why is there no Pigul? Not to the Shlamim. The Shlamim is only on the outside Mizbeach. So for example, which Korbanot do you do on the inside? So for example, the Korban of the Kohen Gadol, which is the Par and the Seid of Yom Kippurim, right? Or Para Kohen HaMashiach, or Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibur. All those ones are going to be chataot, are going to be different things, which you bring them in the inside. You don't bring them on the outside in the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, which that's a big mizbach nechoshet. You're going to bring in the mizbach pnimi. Remember, the mizbach pnimi was very, very small, right? The mizbach nechoshet was huge. When you come and you take the picture of the Beit HaMikdash, I don't know where I put it now. What? Yeah, it's huge. That's the outer one. The one on the inside is very, very small. And it's two completely different mizbeachs. Yeah, one of them is gold, one of them is copper. מה זה? לא המשכן. תעשה את בית המקדש. תיקח של בית המקדש. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I had a folder. You guys remember? I used to have the folder with all the pictures of the Beit HaMikdash and the this and that. The Sefer? Yeah. Yeah. So he says over here like this. So he says, yeah. So he says, since like that, I would have said that the din of Achilat Tumah is like Pigul. Meaning, right, that just like there's the Chatat Pnimit is not going to become Pigul, so to do a Tum'ah of the Achilah, Selam Shos. And therefore, you're not going to be Chayav. Kamashmalan comes to teach you that you're going to be Chayav. So it comes out that according to all the Tanaim, I needed the karet, the third karet, for a dirasha, right? And therefore, it's not going to be panui to teach you anything else. One more time. Rava came and he said, we have three kritut. Klal, prat, prat. I don't need the second prat. I don't need it. So comes the first one, right? And he comes and he says, it's extra. Since it's extra, I'm going to teach it to you for what? Tumah Mikdash. It's extra. I don't need it. Tumah Mikdash. Chazak Baruch. Comes the Gemara, and the Gemara asks, how could you say that it's extra? It's not extra. Every rabbi needs it for a different thing. The first rabbi, Rabbi of who said, I need it for things which are not eaten. The second rabbi, Rabbi Shimon, comes and he says, right, you're still going to be chayav. You're not going to be chayav karet if it's not going to be eaten, but it's coming to include chatata pnimit. Why? I would have thought to say that you don't get karet for chatata pnimit because it's not like a shlamim. Kamashmalan, it was extra to teach you that. So now if I'm going to ask you, what is the third chatat? What is the third prat? Is it extra? You're going to tell me no. Yeah? You're going to tell me no. So now he comes and he says like this, Ela Amre Nardai. But rather Nardai come and they say, Yishmed de Rava in the name of Rava. Shalosh tumot bishlamim lama. Why does it say three different times, right? Tum'ah by the shlamim. So he says, Achat leklal, ve'achat leprat. ואחת, טומאה הכתובה בתורה סתם. ואינו יודע מה היא, but I don't know what it is. הווה אומר טומאת קודש, ואם אינו עניין לטומאת קודש, תנפקא למי דרבי, he learns it from גזירה שווה רבי, תנו עניין לטומאת מקדש. So he says, והי נמי מבעלה, we needed it also. I did the בעלה מכתב, קרא לך דרבי אבהו, כתבנה מטומאות, דלא סגלה בלאו אחי. Right, that also you needed it as well. Which means that also eating the achila kochim betumah. So it comes out that the tumot were also needed for the same drasha of the biavhu. Okay? Because it also says to do with the tumah, the same thing. Elamarava, but rather Rava says, Atia tumato, it's going to be also gzera shavav tumato, because ktivacha, it's written lechol tumato, for all his tumah, zayin mubet. Uchtivatam, and it says over there by parashat paraduma, tameh yeh o tumato bo. Ma lehalan tuma migdash, just like they were talking about tuma migdash. Avkan tuma migdash. So here we're talking about tuma migdash. Ve'ela ba lamali. So why do I have this then? The rabot nivelat of tahor. So it's coming to include nivelat of tahor between all the other tumot that you're going to be chayav korban or lev yored when you eat a nevela of an of tahor. Remember that a nevela just means that you didn't do shchita, right? So that's an of tahor. Of tameh means that it's not kosher. So says the Gemara, Ha Marta, I thought you told me ba is a miyutah. Ba is coming to exclude, because it says ba, it, and not something else. So he says, Mishum miyutah, because it's a miyut, so he comes and he says, Iyatar, it's going to become ribui. Why? Because k'tiv it's written, Ochiiga. When you say kiiga, when you touch, it's already minimizing something. It's a miyut, because only something which is negiah, bar negiah. In the labar negia lo, if it's not negia no, uchtiv ba, and then you have also ba. Ba is also mute. Have a mute, a mute. Remember that a double negative becomes a positive. So the same thing. A double limitation, double mute becomes a ribui, right? So ochi ga is a mute because it's only ba negia. Then it says, right? Ba is also a mute. A mute, a mute, and lelabot. What is it coming lelabot? So it's coming lelabot. That even in velat of tahor, you're going to be chayav also korban ole v'yored. 2 dots. Okay? Until you're clear? Okay. We're talking about now in the 2 dots where it says that a person that has yediyah betchila ve'en ba yediyah basof. What happens if he has a yediyah at the beginning and he doesn't know at the end? So he said that the seed of the Yom Kippurim, which is done on the inside, and also Kippurim itself is going to be tolim to protect him. But why? Because you never found out about it. Meaning the guy was tameh, he forgot about it, and then he never found out again. That means he doesn't remember the behemet. He was, hey, 1 second, you became tameh, and you didn't completely. So says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita, v'chiper al hakodesh mitumo ben Yisrael. Yesh li binyan ze lavi shalosh tumot. It says over there that if it wasn't for the fact, I would have had 3 different tumot. Tumat avodah zarah, tumat gilui arayot, tumat shfichut damim. There's 3 different tumot. The capital sins, capital sins. Bavodah zarah, it says leman tameh mikdashi. Gilui arayot, it says shematem shematem v'tias chukot v'lo titameu bahem. And shfichut damim, it says v'lo titameu et haaretz. So yachol al shalosh tumot alalu yes sayir mechaper. I would have thought to say that anybody that does any of these 3 things, the cardinal sins, you're going to be the sayir primi is going to be mechaper. Tamulomar comes teach you v'chiper mitumo ben Yisrael. Tumot is a lashon miut. So it's only on chelek man, velo al kol hatumot. So ma matzinu shechilek haktub miklal kol hatumot. So where do we see that? What are we dividing? El ve'omer tuma mikdash ve'kodoshav. It's only tuma mikdash ve'kodoshav. Afkan tuma mikdash ve'kodoshav divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Meaning like this. Usually when we came and we said that there's going to be a difference of tumot, what tumot are we talking about? Davka the tumot of mikdash and the kodesh. Meaning you came into the Bet HaMikdash when you're tameh, or you ate the kodesh when you're tameh. So if we're not talking about the tum'ah of the 3 cardinal sins of Rabbi Shimon Omer, I don't have to go that far. You know why? Go to the pasuk. It says v'chiper ala kodesh mitumot shel kodesh. When it says v'chiper ala kodesh mitumot, it means it's a tum'ah of kodesh. We're not talking about tum'ot of avodah zarah gilui shfichut damim. It has nothing to do with the kodesh. It's tavka tumot of kodesh. So from the same pasuk, I don't have to come and say, listen, where else do we see, right, tumot of a thing? And I say, no, it's only kodesh v'mikdash. I don't need that. From the same pasuk, it says, right, v'chiper el kodesh. So yachol al kol tumah shel kodesh yes sayir ze mechaper. I would have thought that it's going to be mechaper on everything. right? And therefore you don't even have to bring a korban olev yored. Tamulomar pishem lechol chatotam. What does that mean? Chataim dumya de pshaim. It's a chet, like a pesha. Ma peshaim enam baim bekorban. What's the difference between a chet and a pesha? Salach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Mechal mentioned ki fashanu. Pesha, right, is much worse than a chet. Chet is accidental. Pesha is purposely. So that's why we say, Salach lanu avinu ki chatanu. You have to forgive us, slicha. Slicha, right, cleanses us in a different form than the mechila. Mechila is when a person comes and he says, mechila. Yeah? So he comes and he says like this. He says, right? He says like this. Omi pishem lechol chatam. Chataam is dumya dipshaim. Just like the pshaim, you don't bring a korban. If you come and you did something purposely, do you bring a korban? There's only korban hasham, never chatat. Chatat is only accidental. So he says, af chataim shenam mekorban. We're talking about also davka shogeg, that there's no korban. Right? So therefore he says, uminayin sheish b'yavitiyah b'tchila v'hem yavitiyah b'sof. How do you know then, if we're talking about that you knew about it at the beginning and you forgot about it afterwards, how do you know, right, that it's the Sayyid is going to protect you? Any type of a chatat. And therefore, in this case, when you have to bring a chatat because you completely forgot about it, right, it's going to be mechaper. Okay? Fine. Next. Amar Mor. Mor says, Yeshli binyan ze lavi shalosh tumot. Right? I wanted to bring 3 different types of tumah. Tumah v'avodah zarah, shfichut damim, v'agirur eriyot. Right? Okay. Havodah zarah hechedamim. What's the case of avodah zarah? Ibemezid, if he killed purposely, bar kitalahu, you have to kill him. Right? V'ibe shogeg, if he did an accident, right? Bar korbanu, he says, 1 second, he would have to bring a korban. So he says, if he's going to be chayav a korban, so then what does it mean now that he's not going to have to bring a sir primi? What's going on? If he has to bring a korban, what's going on over here? So he says, bemezid velo atrube, or beshogeg velo itedale. There are 2 different types of times where at the end of the day, you cannot be killed, but you don't bring a korban. What's the case? You did it bemezid, but there's no testimony, or there's no warning. Can I kill you? No. Can you bring a korban? No. You didn't do it b'shogeg. You did it purposely. Another case. What happens if you did do it b'shogeg, but you didn't know about it? Do we kill you? Obviously not. It was shogeg. Do you bring a korban? Obviously not. You didn't know. Asham talui is sorry. And Asham talui is only if you're not sure whether you did an avirah or not. How do you know bichlal you did an avirah? Doctor, did a person ever wake up in the morning and say, you know what, maybe I just killed someone? Yeah. No, but you don't bring a korban. No, not teshuvah. We're talking about korbanot. You have to bring a korban. You can't just bring a korban stam. There's no such thing as bringing a korban stam. Right? You can bring a korban nedava. You're not allowed to bring a korban chatat. אם הוא נזכר, זה לא המקרה שלנו. אנחנו אומרים, לא יתדע. אם הוא נזכר, אז ודאי שהוא מביא קורבן. Right? He doesn't know about it. So if he doesn't know about it, remember, korban chatat, you can never bring as a present. Because it's a disgrace. It's kilu what? You're sitting against Hashem and you're bringing a korban. Kilu, it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. A korban olah, yes. It's a burnt offering. You bring a present. Nedava. En chatat mevia nedava. That's why we always said, chatat shemetu be'alea. If you have a korban chatat, that the owners die, it has to go to graze and to get a mum and blemish, because you can never bring it anymore. The guy doesn't need a kapara. And you don't just bring a chatat. You know, it doesn't exist. I'm just going to bring a chatat today. Oh. End of a chatat is on something specific. אז הוא לא יכול להביא. הוא לא יכול להביא. הוא לא יכול להביא. הוא לא יכול. הוא לא יכול. הוא לא יכול. Okay? And then we're going to continue with Zat Hashem tomorrow with Gilui Arayot.